They thought they'd sneak one past a floating fortress. Big mistake. On April 1st, 2025, the USS Harry S. Truman, a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, was slicing through the Red Sea, leading a carrier strike group near the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. Clear skies, calm seas, and then it happened. Alarms blared. Radar operators picked up fast-moving blips heading straight for the carrier. Drones. Armed. Launched by Houthi rebels from deep inside Yemen. It wasn't the first time they've tried this stunt, but this time they went bigger. Multiple drones fired over 2 consecutive days, April 1st and 2nd. They weren't targeting a lone destroyer or some commercial ship, they went for the big prize. But here's the thing about trying to hit a US aircraft carrier with repurposed commercial drones. It's like throwing a rock at a tank. Sure, you might scratch the paint, but good luck getting through the armor. This time the Navy wasn't caught off guard. Defensive systems kicked in the high gear. Sailors scrambled to stations. And what unfolded next sent a crystal clear message. Not just to the Houthis, but to anyone ever thinking of testing American steel in the Red Sea. So what happens when a rebel group takes aim at a US supercarrier with Iranian-backed drones? Let's just say the ocean got loud. Let's rewind to the moment just after the alarms went off. The USS Harry S. Truman had been operating in the southern Red Sea as part of Task Force 153, a multinational maritime security force patrolling one of the most volatile shipping lanes on Earth. The threat of Houthi drones and missile attacks had been growing for months, especially after increased U.S. strikes on Houthi launch sites in Yemen. But this was different. This was bold. The rebels were going after the crown jewel of U.S. naval power. It all started on the night of April 1st. 2 Iranian-designed drones, most likely Samad 3s, long-range loitering munitions capable of flying hundreds of kilometers, were detected by radar as they entered the strike group's defensive perimeter. The Harry S. Truman's Combat Information Center lit up in seconds. The Aegis radar system on a nearby Arleigh Burke-class destroyer confirmed their trajectory. They were locked in. Orders snapped through the ship. General quarters, all hands man your battle stations. From the bridge down to the lowest deck, sailors dropped what they were doing. Metal boots hammered against steel decks. The air filled with the unmistakable sound of readiness. Hatches slamming shut, the whine of CIWS spooling up, radios crackling with coded commands. The drone veered slightly off course and then went down before reaching weapons range. Likely jammed or spoofed by electronic warfare systems aboard one of the escorting cruisers. But the second drone kept flying, hugging the altitude sweet spot just above radar clutter. Then the barked order, engage. Within moments, phalanx CIWS, also known as the CIWS, on board the Truman spun up. It's the last line of defense system. Basically, a 6-barrel Gatling gun hooked up to a radar brain that fires 4,500 rounds per minute. That's 75 rounds per second. The crew calls it R2-D2 with a bad attitude. Tracer rounds lit up the night like a fireworks finale. A literal wall of lead sliced through the sky. Seconds later, boom! Mid-air detonation. Drone turned into flaming debris, rained harmlessly into the ocean. The next day, April 2nd, the Houthis doubled down. This time, intelligence picked up at least 4 drones launched in sequence. The carrier group was ready. First contact was made about 80 nautical miles out. Guided missile destroyers USS Gravely and USS Mason, both operating as part of the Truman Screen, launched Standard Missile 2 Interceptors, or SM-2s. These are the Navy's air defense workhorses. Long range, deadly accurate, and when one hits, it's not subtle. 2 drones were blasted out of the sky in high altitude. The third got close. Too close. It slipped through the initial defenses and made it within 12 miles of the Truman, just skimming over the waves. But it didn't make it far. A rolling sea of 20mm shells from a second CIWS mount shredded it instantly. The fourth drone never made it out of Yemeni airspace. A U.S. Navy EA-18G Growler, an electronic warfare aircraft launched from the Truman's deck, jammed its comlink, forcing it into a spiral dive. No U.S. ships were damaged, no injuries, just scorched drone parts bobbing in the water like trash in the tide. The message was clear: come at us again, and you'll get the same. What's wild is how normal this has become, though. Since late 2023, the Houthis have turned the Red Sea into a shooting gallery. Commercial tankers, cargo ships, even warships. Nothing has been off limits. But targeting a U.S. supercarrier? That's a whole new level of insanity. And yet, here we are talking about it. The Truman Strike Group executed its response flawlessly. Tight coordination, layered defense, and total discipline under pressure. Quick question. What would you have done if you were the carrier's commander at that moment? Hold fire and wait, or light up the sky the second the drones breach the perimeter? Let us know your take in the comments down below. Because, as you'll see next, this ship isn't just floating metal. It's a fortress with teeth. You don't just throw drones at a floating airport and hope for the best. The USS Harry S. Truman isn't your average warship. It's a 100,000-ton nuclear-powered beast, over 3 football fields long, capable of launching a fully loaded fighter jet every 25 seconds. This isn't a ship, it's a war machine disguised as a city. After the April 1st and 2nd drone attacks, it became painfully clear why going after this thing was a terrible idea. The Truman is part of the Nimitz class, massive carriers designed to project power across the globe. On board, over 5,000 sailors and air wing crew, 90-plus aircraft, and enough firepower to black out a grid. Its defenses aren't just for show. You've got layers. The first is the outer screen, escorting cruisers and destroyers equipped with Aegis radar systems and SM-series missiles that can swat threats out of the sky before they even get close. Then there's the inner shield, short-range interceptors like the evolved Sea Sparrow missile or ESSM, and of course the infamous CIWS turrets. These systems are so fast and so precise, they can lock onto and destroy an incoming target the size of a football, traveling hundreds of miles per hour in less time than it takes to blink. The ship also deploys advanced electronic warfare tools. It's not just about blowing stuff up, it's also about making sure that the enemy can't see you, can't talk to their drones, and can't even lock onto your position. Jammers, decoys, and radar-absorbing coatings are all part of the toolkit. But the Truman's biggest weapon isn't a missile or a machine gun. It's coordination. Every crew member knows their job, from the radar techs deep inside the Combat Information Center to the yellow-shirted flight deck crews moving jets like chess pieces. Every second counts, and seconds are what separates success from failure. Want to know what it's like when the ship goes into battle stations? Okay. Imagine this. The lights shift to red, boots thunder down metal corridors, and every monitor in the CIC lights up like a Christmas tree. Pilots run toward their jets, weapons team preps sidewinders and harms, and the flight deck becomes a carefully choreographed ballet of chaos. And the captain? Calm, focused, calling out orders while a billion-dollar target floats calmly in contested waters. But this ship isn't running. It's daring you to try again. During the April drone assaults, not a single system failed. Not a single sailor hesitated. That's the edge the Truman has. Training, discipline, and tech that borders on sci-fi. The April 1st and 2nd attacks on the USS Harry S. Truman weren't random acts. These drones were launched in waves, timed apart, likely to test detection windows and defense response times. Some were high altitude, some flew low, and some slow across the sea. It wasn't high-tech warfare, it was guerrilla tactics gone airborne. So where are they getting this stuff? Mostly Iran. The Houthis have been supplied for years with parts and know-how to assemble drones like the Samad 3 and the Qasef-1. The Samad has a range of over 1,000 miles, carries a small warhead, and is GPS guided. Not exactly surgical, but enough to cause chaos, especially when launched in swarms. The Qasef? Think of it as a flying grenade. Cheap, expendable, and designed for one thing: impact. They know they can't match US firepower, so they aim to be unpredictable instead. Up next, we'll show you exactly how the Truman made sure these drones didn't stand a chance. So the Houthis launched their flying threats. Cheap, slow, and desperate. But what they didn't count on was what happens when one of those drones dares to get too close. Because while the Harry S. Truman may look like a floating airport, it's built like a fortress, and it doesn't play defense politely. As soon as the first drone was detected on April 1st, the ship's Combat Information Center, or CIC for short, shifted into overdrive. The CIC is the carrier's nerve center. No windows, no noise. Just a room packed with radar screens, threat detectors, comms chatter, and sailors trained to handle a sky full of bad decisions. The radar lock came from the USS Mason, a guided missile destroyer screening the carrier's starboard flank. Once the drone popped up on Spy 1 radar, part of the Aegis combat system, it took just seconds to verify. Not friendly, not commercial, not one of ours. From there, things escalated fast. Combat alert, track confirmed, weapons free. The destroyer fired first. An SM-2 Standard missile streaked into the sky with a sonic boom that echoed across the water. These missiles are designed to take out aircraft and cruise missiles at long range. It found the target at 60 nautical miles and turned it into scrap. But the Houthis weren't done. A second drone came in lower, slower, flying below the radar sweep, trying to sneak in under the ship's scanning horizon. The kind of tactic that's worked before on commercial ships. Not here. On the Truman, the Phalanx CIWS lit up. The Phalanx, or CIWS, is what happens when the Navy decides to put a chain gun on a rotating turret and give it a radar brain. This 6-barrel monster can track, aim, and fire without human input. It spits out 20mm tungsten rounds at 4,500 rounds per minute. That's 75 bullets per second. A literal wall of lead. Once the system identified the drone, there's no warning. Just a high-pitched whine, a roar of fire, and then silence. Drone gone, threat neutralized, nothing left but shrapnel. On April 2nd, it got even hotter. This time, 4 drones came in from different directions, an obvious attempt to overload the defense net. But the Truman wasn't alone. It had escorts. The USS Gravely fired 2 more SM-2s. A Growler from the Truman's own air wing jammed one drone mid-flight, causing it to lose control and crash into the sea. The last drone, the fastest of the group, came within 15 miles. Dangerously close. But again, the carrier's inner shield held firm. ESSM launchers activated. The evolved Sea Sparrow missile is a short-range interceptor made for these exact moments, where seconds matter. Fired in under 2 seconds from the detection cue, the ESSM slammed into the target, detonating midair. And throughout all of this, not a single crew member panicked, not one missed a step. There's a reason why the Navy trains for this every day. Battle drills, response timers, layered defense strategies. These sailors aren't just reacting, they're executing muscle memory. Meanwhile, the Truman's air wing stayed ready. FA-18 Super Hornets were armed and fueled. Growlers kept jamming patterns in play. Hawkeyes scanned the skies from above, coordinating the entire engagement picture from 25,000 feet. And just in case something really went south, fire teams were already suited up below deck. Damage control units stood by, medical stations were prepped. Because when you're floating in enemy waters, redundancy isn't a luxury, it's survival. These systems didn't just work, they dominated. Every single drone was intercepted before it could get within striking distance. No alarms beyond readiness, no damage reports, no casualties. All that was left? Twisted metal in the waves and a very clear message to whoever was watching. If you come for the carrier, you better bring more than dollar store drones. And let's not forget the psychological side of this, though. The Truman didn't just defend itself, it humiliated the attackers. Every intercepted drone broadcast a silent failure back to its launch site. Every round fired was a reminder that U.S. carriers don't just float, they fight back, and they fight back hard. If you were commanding the Houthi drone teams, would you try again? Or is that a death wish? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We want to hear your battle plan. Next up, let's talk about what the U.S. did after the smoke cleared, because the Navy doesn't just play defense. If you thought the U.S. Navy was just going to wipe drones out of the sky and sail on like nothing happened, think again. Because after those attacks on April 1st and 2nd, the gloves came off. Within hours of the final drone being vaporized midair, strike orders were drafted. Satellite intel and drone surveillance pinpointed the likely Houthi launch sites in western Yemen, scattered across remote desert areas and coastal ridgelines. These weren't just makeshift launch pads, they were hardened positions, camouflaged, some even embedded near civilian infrastructure. But here's the part that the Houthis didn't calculate. The Harry S. Truman isn't just a floating airfield for defense. It's an offensive juggernaut. And now the carriers weren't going to wait to be hit. They were going to hit first. At 0400 hours on April 3rd, the call came down. Launch package Bravo, targets confirmed. On the flight deck, a dozen F/A-18 Super Hornets lined up in a formation. Engines whining, wings loaded with precision JDAMs and AGM-88 HARM missiles. It was still dark, but the afterburners lit the carrier like a second sunrise. The strike group wasn't going in blind either. Intelligence aircraft, E-2D Hawkeyes and MQ-9 Reapers provided real-time overwatch. The Navy just didn't want to retaliate. They wanted to surgically cut off the threat at its source. The first wave of strikes hit drone storage facilities near Hodeidah. Secondary explosions confirmed. Fuel, munitions, and electronics went up in flames. Then came the high-speed dash through Houthi-controlled airspace to take out mobile launchers tracked moving inland towards Taiz. Meanwhile, U.S. destroyers operating in the Gulf of Aden fired Tomahawk cruise missiles from vertical launch cells, traveling hundreds of miles before slamming into radar facilities and command nodes responsible for directing drone attacks. It wasn't a firefight, it was a message carved into Yemeni soil. The Pentagon released a short but clear statement. The United States will respond decisively to any attacks on our forces. We do not seek conflict, but we will eliminate threats before they reach our ships. But this wasn't just a U.S. response. The Harry S. Truman was operating with allies. The French Navy's frigate Alsace and a British Royal Navy destroyer also moved into high alert. Both provided sensor data and patrolled nearby airspace in coordination with U.S. Navy assets. Think about that. A multinational naval alliance coordinating real-time drone defense and counterstrikes from international waters. That's power projection. And back on the Truman, the mood was focused, sharp. No victory dances, just professionalism. Pilots returned from their missions, debriefed and rearmed. Deck crews scrubbed the catapults, command teams updated threat maps. No downtime, because when you're in hostile waters, the next attack is always a possibility. But let's be real, this wasn't just about protecting the Truman. These waters carry global cargo. Tankers, freighters, food, oil. Billions in trade move through the Red Sea every week. If the Houthis succeed in turning this into a no-go zone, the economic shockwaves would be massive. That's why the Navy hit back. Hard. Because letting one drone sneak through today means 10 more come tomorrow. Because up next, we're looking at the bigger picture. What does this mean for global security? What happens if the next drone does get through? Let's talk about the aftermath. The strikes were over, the decks cooled, but the tension still sky high. After the US hit back on April 3rd, the region didn't suddenly become peaceful. The Red Sea, already a geopolitical powder keg, just got even more complicated. Because when a supercarrier gets targeted and drones start falling out of the sky, the message isn't just sent to the attackers, it echoes across the entire world. And just to be clear that this wasn't just a one-off attack. The Houthis have been increasingly bold, targeting everything from Saudi oil facilities to commercial tankers in the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. But going after the Harry S. Truman, that raised the stakes. It signaled that no vessel, no matter how big or well defended, is off limits. Still, this isn't over. The Red Sea remains tense. The next drone wave could be smarter, faster, deadlier. The battlefield is changing, and the Navy knows it. But so far, the defenders aren't just keeping up, they're winning. One engagement at a time. If tensions keep rising, do you think that it's only a matter of time before a major conflict erupts in the Red Sea? Or will deterrence be enough to keep the peace? Drop your thoughts down in the comments. We want to hear from you. If you enjoyed this breakdown, hit that like button. Subscribe for more military deep dives, and tap the notification bell so you never miss when the next story drops. Thanks for watching, and remember, never bet against a U.S. carrier.